Someone will say marketing doesn't work. We can't get enough leads. We're not getting the brand awareness we need. A lot of times that's because they're not getting their messaging in front of that exact audience. I don't want to learn another technology. I said, it's not another technology. You just need to learn how to talk to it. I'm impressed. The companies that are just copying and pasting and throwing it out there or trying to get a blog out every 5 minutes, that's going to backfire because they're not really thinking about what their audience needs. That you will be left behind. Companies don't focus on relationship building. They will get left behind. It is about relationship building, utilizing AI, and going back to some of the traditional ways that is really going to keep you getting that market share your company deserves.
Today, we sit down with Donna Peterson, CEO of World Innovators, with over 45 years of experience helping B2B and industrial companies reach the hardest audiences in the world. She's the host of the B2B Marketing Excellence in AI podcast, and one of the few experts who truly understands how to blend old school relationship building with modern AI. In this episode, Donna reveals why companies are losing the trust of their buyers, the real reason marketing feels broken, and how industrial brands can finally stand out in a world drowning in noise. This is the Inevitable Cast, where execution meets intelligent automation, sponsored by Inevitable Flow, helping AEC and industrial companies generate predictable qualified leads using AI-powered outbound systems.
Welcome to the Inevitable Cast. This podcast is sponsored by Inevitable Flow. We help architecture, engineering, and construction companies generate a consistent flow of qualified project leads using smart AI solutions. If you want to book a free consultation to find out more, click the link in the description of the show. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by someone who has been blending relationship-driven B2B marketing with modern AI adoption long before it became mainstream. Donna Peterson is the president and CEO of World Innovators, a 45-year-old family-founded B2B marketing firm that specializes in helping industrial manufacturing and niche technical sectors reach the right audiences through message clarity, trust, and relationship building. She's also the host of the B2B Marketing Excellence and AI podcast, with over 100 conversations unpacking how companies can adopt AI intentionally without overwhelming their teams. Donna spends her time training leaders and organizations on understanding, implementing, and actually using AI across their workflows, ensuring it creates efficiency, not chaos. Donna, it's great to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I'm very passionate about this. And you and I seem to have the same mindset that it's all about quality. It's not about shoving content out in the marketplace. It's about building quality relationships. So I cannot wait to jump into this conversation with you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So let's start with some context. For listeners who haven't met you yet, how do you describe what do you do at World Innovators today?
Well, our company was founded, as you mentioned, 45 years ago by my mother. And when she founded the company, it was to find good quality leads for B2B brands like Forrester and Caltech and a whole variety of companies. And she went door to door per se. And she flew all over the world to meet with publishers and conference companies about utilizing their mailing lists at the time. You have to remember, 45 years ago, we weren't talking about email lists. It was to find postal lists. And those relationships that she formed 45 years ago are still in existence today. But of course, we've gone into other channels besides postal mailings. We're into emails and banners and sponsorships. And it's really down to finding your exact target audience, but then building a relationship with them. It's not about just finding them and plummeting them with sales messages. You want to figure out, how can I truly help them? And that's where we are today.
Amazing. And Donna, I cannot help but ask, it's a family-founded company. Your mother started it. Now you're leading it. What was that transition like stepping into leadership yourself?
Interesting one, if I had to be honest, because you have the family dynamics. And I should just tell you, my mother started the company. 2 years later, my father joined the company. 8 years later, no more than that, I joined the company. And a few years after that, my husband joined the company. So we've had quite a few family members in the company. So you have to work out personalities and the dynamic. And then as technology changed, that is kind of how my role got put more into leadership because we went into the email. And then, of course, when AI came about, I was at the forefront of that and pushing the company that way. So it's been a nice progression, but there definitely were some bumpy spots.
Oh yeah, as any business, especially the ones that are led by family. And was there like a particular moment where you realized, marketing wasn't just about lists and campaigns anymore, but about relationships and now AI?
Yes, yes. And I hate to use this cliche, but I think when COVID hit, we all started with the Zoom calls, and B2B used to be very stoic. You would talk about your brand, you didn't bring your personal life in it much. And then all of a sudden we had COVID, and people were doing calls in their kitchens. The dog was running through the backyard, the postman was showing up. Whatever it was, all of a sudden those B2B barriers were breaking down and it became more human. As humans, we started to talk about, for instance, my favorite coffee mug that might be on my desk or whatever it might be. And I think that's when it really clicked for me. It wasn't about just making a sale. It was about giving these people information that they could take in and they would then decide if they wanted to buy from you. But the whole relationship really started to form and take hold.
Yeah, no, that resonates a lot. I mean, a lot has changed since COVID, and we cannot neglect it, right? We need to understand the shift and, work with it to, keep generating impact and results.
You're right. My father was a salesman and he was always very good at doing the relationship. Like he would push back in his chair and before he would start talking about business, how are you doing? How's the family? What was your last vacation? He would really dive into knowing the people. And at the time, I was too impatient. I was always rushing to get the next thing done. And I thought what he was doing at times was such a waste of time, and it wasn't. And I've learned from my mistakes. And that's why I want to be out there spreading the word for everybody else to learn from my mistakes and value those relationships.
Amazing. And that is a good segue to what I wanted to ask you next is where do you personally spend most of your time today? Is it like client strategy or AI training or maybe podcasting or what is a day to day in the life of Donna?
Oh, that is a hard one. Right now, we are doing our podcast on a weekly basis, so it does take up time. Not just the filming, but as you know, getting it out there in front of the right people, offering value to the people, and of course, with our podcasts, we do social media posts, several times over a few months to promote the episode, but then there's email announcements. And then we like to have blogs that have different content, but complement what we did in the podcast. So there's a whole strategy there that we use in house. But then with our clients, we do the same thing. We don't believe that you just do one email blast and that's it. One-offs don't work. And you have to make sure that you create a strategy where you're giving out the information the people need on a variety of different channels, whether it is social media. And I know we're talking on the B2B, the industrial side, where some people might question social media, but you need to be there. You, especially on LinkedIn, you need to be there with a strong presence, and those social media posts should complement whatever you're doing, whether it's a podcast, whether you're doing a blog, whether you're doing an email.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And
Yes.
now that we understand, your personal journey, I wanted to peel back the curtain on how your business actually works, right? Help us understand, the structure behind World Innovators. When a typical client comes to you, let's say an industrial B2B or manufacturing, what problem are they usually trying to solve first?
The first thing people would come to us is how do they find their target audience? A lot of the manufacturers I deal with today, some of them will say marketing doesn't work, or we can't get enough leads, or we're not getting the brand awareness we need. A lot of times that's because they're not getting their messaging in front of that exact audience. And one of the things we are big proponents of are using industry specific sources. So magazines like a cutting tool engineering or a laboratory equipment magazine, using those publications to reach the readership that match our clients' audience. Because those publishers have already done the due diligence of checking to make sure those people are in that field. Sometimes they can tell us what types of products they're interested in purchasing. And then when we align that with what our clients are offering, of course, it's a success because we're reaching the exact people who are live and kicking and
Yeah.
are at that title because they're constantly being vetted, but also we know they're interested in buying what our clients are offering. So finding their target audience is the main reason companies come to us today. And then the other side is the AI training.
Yeah, the finding their exact audience, the ideal customer, that is self-explanatory. But the AI training is intriguing. Can you elaborate on like how you
Yeah.
currently help them, with this?
Yeah, it's a very interesting journey. And if you asked my children who are in their 20s, they're like, "What are you doing talking about AI?" Our training on AI. And what happened is it was all through our podcast, and I started doing some episodes talking about how people could use AI in their everyday work. And then one of them said, Donna, could you come speak at our conference? So I spoke at their conference. And then a CEO approached me and said, Donna, could you come in and present to our entire team? So everyone from the CEO down to the administrative assistant to even the maintenance people come in and talk about AI. And when I go into these organizations, you sometimes have to start out with just the overview of why AI, why now you must learn to leverage it. And then what I think my training and presenting is different is I go into actual demonstrations on how you can use certain tools and I show them right there so that they get actionable steps that they can implement. Because I think the biggest thing we all see is like we go to conferences, we're like, oh, that's such a great idea. And I'll call my team. I'm like, you guys, when we get back, we got to do this, this, and this. And they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But we get caught up with everyday work. And guess what happens? Those great ideas don't get implemented. So the biggest thing I do is when I go in, I present on AI, is I give actionable steps. And then I like it when the company has me do monthly kind of check in. Have you tried it? Where are you at? What's working? What's not? And that just kind of holds their feet to the fire for accountability that even if they didn't do anything with AI, if it's the night before my session, I bet you they're going on AI and they're doing something. So they have something to say. And that just helps them start to really figure out how to leverage it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Accountability is key for anything, not just the
Yes.
gym, right?
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and how about internally, right? How do your team use AI today? Like what workflows or maybe repetitive tasks that you have successfully automated?
Well, we're a big one on Chat GPT. As soon as Chat GPT was introduced to the world back in November of 2022, at the time I was the CEO of the company and obviously juggling a lot of balls. And when that came, I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is what I need. I need that assistant that's by my side 24/7." So I just dove in and I learned as much as possible. I tried to implement it. But when it first came out, it was very elementary. And when you deal on the industrial side and the B2B side, I was kind of on the fence, like, is this really going to be helpful for my everyday work? But I started to train it more. And then, of course, ChatGPT kept evolving and getting better, just like all of them out there. Gemini is better, and even Copilot's a lot better than it was, 10 months ago. They've all started to evolve. And that's when we use ChatGPT for everything. It can be for content creation, ideology. I do a lot of audio speaking with ChatGPT because I might be out for a walk or working out, listening to a podcast, but I'll get this great idea. I'll stop, get the audio feature on, and we'll start to talk about maybe a podcast idea or what trade show we should go to next. And we do a lot of ideology there. And now, as a company, we are creating AI agents for our clients because we've explained to them how these AI agents sometimes can do that preliminary work for them or answer those preliminary questions or get more details from the prospect so that when they actually speak to the individual, they're able to dive into the nitty gritty and serve up the actual information. So we're seeing that they're closing sales faster. The marketing is more responsive and they're following up with any leads they might have in a much faster time frame.
That is definitely the way to do it. I mean, there is so much out there that,
Yes.
and I would categorize like 90% of it as noise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And companies need a source of signal, right?
Yes.
And what I think you are doing is you're being this source of signal to companies in like, hey, this is the way that you can actually apply this and get some results from it, right? And I will hold
That's
you accountable to implementing it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that was one of the things, even when I'm talking with ChatGPT, I always say, make sure whatever you give back is very grounded, showing that I truly care because that's who I am. So when I go in and I'll train at companies, even though I'm in there giving the big presentation, it doesn't stop there. I tell every single person that's there, if you want to reach out to me individually, please do. I'll walk you through your specific needs so that they see the value in AI. And a quick story, I had someone and they were older and they said, Donna, I don't want to learn another technology. And I said, give me a few minutes. Let me show you. I said, it's not another technology. You just need to learn how to talk to it. And I'm happy to report last week I got an email from them going, I'm impressed. They were able to utilize what I had taught them on ChatGPT so that it helped them create this follow-up email that they needed with specific details that were listed on their website. And, when I see those aha moments, I get so excited about that. But I think right now, like you said, there's so much out there about AI. It's overwhelming and it's paralyzing some companies. And I try to break it down so it's plain and simple so that they start to look into it.
Yeah, and on that topic, that's a great example. I think AI is great. I think it can be applied to my company, but I don't want to learn it. I don't have the time. I don't think I have the skill set. Do you also think, or do you also do some level of service in a way that is like a done for you, like for them, the people that don't really want to get their hands dirty with AI?
Yes, I do. Matter of fact, usually when I go in with proposals, it will be, I will train you to do it or I will do it for you. But I always say there has to be some AI training there because they have to understand what we're doing or how we're implementing it. For instance, yes, we create the AI agent, but everyone in the organization has to understand how the AI agent works and what the benefits are. And you need that for two reasons. One is if they understand the benefits of the AI agent, they're more apt to give it out to people saying, here's the QR code or here's the link to our AI agent. But they can also think about what questions they're asked a lot, and then they give it to us so that we can feed it into the AI agent with the right response. I'm not on the ground. They got to be able to give me that information.
Big
And
time.
even when I go into teams and it might be like marketing and sales and the CEO, but I want the CEO to be there because he has to understand or she has to understand how they can incorporate it into their, just so it trickles all down.
Yeah, that makes total sense. If it doesn't have buy-in from the company
Yeah.
or even like the decision makers, it's a lot of effort for wasted results. Let's put it like this. It's just a shiny thing that doesn't actually help.
Yes. And anything you're doing with AI, it's not a one and done. Like you don't create an AI agent and it's done. You just sit it on your website or put it on your business card for years to come. No, you have to constantly be updating it with newer information and feeding it the information and being able to handle the tasks that it's asked in an appropriate way. And top management, really every single department needs to know how it works. And it's also good when you get the entire team in there for some of these AI sessions because it becomes collaborative. When I do those accountability calls, it's not just, oh, did you test out what I did? It's all of us talking, and I'll be there facilitating it, but I want to hear from Joe. How did you use it? Did it work? Did it not work? Jennifer, did it work? Everyone starts to chime in and they share ideas, which just helps them leverage it even better for the organization.
Yeah, that makes total sense. But I'm still curious about one thing about you specifically. It seems like you do a lot and that's great, but given your mix of speaking, training, consulting, podcasting, how do you prioritize your time?
Well, it's my mother always used to say, orders come first. That is the first thing. I work with clients. A lot of my clients have time sensitive offers, a lot of industrial auction companies, executive education programs. Those have to take precedence of getting recommendations out to them, getting the orders fulfilled. I don't do all of that. That's part where I'll be very client facing, but then my team handles a lot of the back end, you know, the orders, the finance, making sure things are tested on time. Then in regards to the podcast, yeah, that's all me. Um, I try to always work it so that the episodes are a good succession, so that it leads the people on a journey. And I'm also trying to implement within our podcast that every single one of them have actionable steps. And that gets done. And then in regards to AI training, we have those set things on the schedule. So you have to be set if you're meeting with a client every month, at least 2 weeks out, I'm going over what that training's going to look like because I like to sit with it for a while. I like to hear from other people within the organization whether what I'm going to teach really could offer them value within the company.
Yeah, that makes sense. As far as, maybe can you share, Donna, an example of a client that, you've helped create value through, AI implementation into their business? Just like, they were in A, they wanted to get to B, this is what we did, and it completely changed it.
Yeah, well, it's different because there's so many different departments. I've done it where I've talked to sales teams and one of the things getting back to the importance of building relationships is AI is an amazing tool, but it has to be used properly. The companies that are just copying and pasting and throwing it out there are trying to get a blog out every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
um, that's going to backfire because they're not really thinking about their audience, what their audience needs, and serving them information. And so AI is great, but it has to be used properly. And then one of the things about building the relationship is sometimes you have to go back to some of those traditional marketing and sales tactics of meeting people in person, going to trade shows, sending a handwritten note, which I know some of you are probably like, what? But we have had companies where I went in, I did an AI training. They're all starting to use ChatGPT to help create the follow-up, but they're doing a lot of trade shows, more than they ever did. And they're doing the handwritten note. And they came into me and said, Donna, it is working better than we could ever imagine. They're getting people to request to come on a tour of their facility. And they said that never happened. Because I think, I tell people, you have people stop by your booth. What if you sent them a note saying, I know your time here, you don't have that much time. Thank you so much for taking the time to stop by our booth and putting some personal information in there, which I show them with some personal things. Like I tell them you're at a trade show, you just talk to someone, get out your phone, get on ChatGPT, quickly leave an audio note. I spoke with Donna Peterson. She loves to downhill ski, but she also needs this piece of equipment in her facility. That way, when you're writing those handwritten notes, you put those personalized details in there. It shows you care. It
Yeah.
shows you don't want to just make the sale.
Yeah.
You're going to be there with them.
Yeah, that's really well said. I don't like to say, but like I see that we live in a trust recession. People are
That's a
being
good one.
offered, yeah, people are being offered things day and night. They have like thousands of emails that they have to choose to ignore. Otherwise, they can't even do their work if they were to
Yes.
open, for example, all the emails. And the tricky thing is like, how do you grow your company, find new clients, but at the same time do this in a way that is relevant to them, that like open the conversation in a relationship driven approach. I think what you just said there illustrates it a lot. The approach that are actually working nowadays is exactly those kind of approaches.
Yes, and I just did a podcast on this, and I used the analogy of weightlifting. When I first went into the gym and I was weightlifting, and I had always worked out at home, it was like, how many reps can I get in? Like I was bicep curling like crazy. And then I learned that, if you went slower up and down, I was really working on my muscles deeper and I was getting stronger faster. And I think a lot of companies have to learn to do that. Sometimes less is more. And I've talked to companies about let's cut back on the marketing you're doing. Let's cut back. And the things that you're doing, make sure they are filled with value. Make sure they give really actionable items with educational pieces of information that helps them. When you do that, like you said, that trust recession, when you give people information and don't ask for the sale, it starts to build trust. Either that or they sit
Yeah.
there for a while. What's their deal? But then after a while, they realize, oh, you know what? They really do care and understand what I'm trying to accomplish. And what happens when you do that, and I saw it in myself, is I start to have more meaning in my work. I start to enjoy my work more because it's no longer about just making a sale. It's about helping others. And
Yeah.
when you do that, we all just feel really good inside.
It couldn't have been better said.
Yeah.
You know, Lead with value, right? Wherever
Yes.
you go.
I tell
And
clients, give, give, give. Just give information. And of course, like I said years ago, that wasn't what we did here at World Innovators. 45 years ago, my mother would be like, wait a minute, what are you getting that out for? That's not going to make us any money. And, still, but I'm like, well, they really need that information. She goes, well, that's not very profitable. But I found that when our attitude changed in-house to that moment, and I think maybe that episode's going live this Thursday because of Thanksgiving, what I'm thankful for is when we switched here at World Innovators to giving, offering value, helping, inspiring success versus just make a sale. It really just changed the whole company and myself.
beautiful. Donna, you are in a unique position, right? You see legacy companies,
Mhm.
emerging innovators, and everything in between. What, in your opinion, from your experience, are like the real pain points you're seeing right now among industrial and B2B brands?
Yeah, that's a very good question because a lot of the legacy brands, you have top management that's been there for years. And sometimes I hear, but we've always done it that way. We don't need to change the way we're thinking. We don't need to be out there. Everyone knows who we are. When I hear things like that, and it's hard because I know they're looking at me saying, "Of course you're going to say that, Donna. You're in marketing." But I say, well, then Why is Rolex still at the golf tournaments? Why is Coca-Cola still on all the banners of so many sporting events? Why do I still get postcards from Google? Like I get the big printed postcards from Google. You always need brand awareness. And you have to remember that these companies are bringing in young talent. They have to know who you are. And you need to be out there offering value because, like you said, if you are a legacy brand, you don't want to lose that good market share you've had for so many years. So you got to make sure your brand stays out there, top of mind, but offering value that shows you care about the industry, you care about their company, and you want to see them succeed.
Yeah. And I want to touch on the AI topic again because you've mentioned that leaders are feeling nervous about AI because mostly they don't understand it, right?
Mhm.
But what does that fear look like inside organizations?
Well, sometimes the fear is paralyzing. Top management doesn't understand AI and doesn't think they need it. Going back to the legacy brands, we've always done it that way. We don't need AI, or they think it's a fad, or I've heard, oh, that's a younger generation thing. And that's why sometimes they like me to speak because, I'm outside the younger generation and I'm showing, I can do it. But I find once I go into those organizations and I break it down plain and simple of a way to use AI, whether it is following up on business cards that you got at a trade show, whether it is how to send an email to a partner of yours, giving them those value based pieces of information. So, whether it's a podcast episode or a blog or whatever it might be, how you can use AI to research and find the right podcast episode to mention in that letter that will save them time. When you start to show them little things like that, I love those moments as a trainer because it's the light bulb goes off and then the floodgates open. And that's when we just start like, well, could I do this? Could I do this? Could it create an Excel spreadsheet? Yes, it can, and it gets really exciting when that happens. But besides that, it's not only getting top management to realize you need AI. Sometimes the issue I come across is top management saying, we can't get our team to embrace AI. And again, you have to do the same thing. This is where when I go in and I do team trainings, I try to have one thing in the presentation that would resonate with every single department so that they can see the value in it. And as soon as that like light switch goes off, everyone's on board. They can't get enough. It's like eating M&Ms. You eat one, forget it, like you need the bowl.
Amazing, amazing. That's such a great example. From your perspective, Donna, what's the risk, the real risk for companies that don't adopt AI in a structured, intentional way?
I know I sound like everybody else, and I hate using the fear tactic, but you will be left behind. And the reason why is you can do so much with AI. And I don't mean replace humans with AI. Going back to the building of relationships as a CEO or a president of a company, it's not about just building relationships with prospects. You've got to build relationships with your employees, the vendors, the prospects, the customers, everyone you come in contact with. And that's a lot of relationship building. And that's hard to do. But if you have that AI assistant by you, it can help you do some of the research to figure out exactly what these people need and then deliver them the information that's specific to their needs. And that's where if companies don't focus on relationship building, they will get left behind because of what you said earlier. There's so many messages out in the marketplace. It is overwhelming. So how does a company stand out? A company stands out when it slows down for a minute, puts out that really valuable content that the person can use, and continues to develop that relationship. Those people then stay with you year after year. So you can continue to look for new people. You won't have a sales cycle like this. You'll have one that's going straight up like that. So it is about relationship building, utilizing AI, and going back to some of the traditional ways of meeting people in person or sending a handwritten
Yeah.
note that is really going to keep you getting that market share your company deserves.
And there is a famous phrase. I once attributed it to Peter Drucker, but later on I found it's not his. But I don't know who said it. But it says, it goes, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." Right? It leaders can have the best strategy. They can try to implement AI. They can get the best tools, the best trainers. But if the team, the culture of the company doesn't buy into that, it doesn't flow. Right?
Yes, yes. I was just working with, it was a prospect, matter of fact, and I was talking to them about helping them with their AI agents. And they decided to go with a much larger company to create the AI agent. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it was a very well-known platform who's going to design their agent. I said, really, I'm so happy that you found a company to work with. What my reservation is, I hope to goodness everyone on the team understands the value and has enough input. Like sometimes when you work with such large platforms, not everyone gets to have input. And if you're not asking them for their input, you're not grabbing their buy-in. And if they don't buy in, they're not going to use it. They're not going to help feed it. They're not going to help develop this AI agent. And sometimes when you work with smaller groups and everyone has to be hands-on, that's when the magic happens
Yeah.
because everyone has input. That AI agent will be even more responsive because now it's handling information or questions that you received from a whole variety of people versus a large platform that maybe is just going down a checklist.
Yeah. Totally. You have like a deep view of both where we are and where things is going. And I want to tap into that. What trends are you paying attention to right now? And let me rephrase this into a secondary question. That's like, what do you see coming over the next 12 to 24 months in B2B marketing and for industrial sectors as well?
A lot over the years that I've been in business. There's a lot of economic changes, there's a lot of technology changes. We're always going to have technology changes, and we have to learn to evolve. Companies need to evaluate any technology that's out there and make sure that they use it in line with what their company's mission is or their company's goals. So, that being said, what you're going to see over the next 24 months is first, more and more companies are going to start utilizing AI tools. The companies that are going to succeed at using these AI tools are the ones who take the time and teach their entire team a grounded way of why. Why do we need these tools? How and for what for? You got to kind of go through those simple questions. I feel like Simon Sinek with why, but it's true. If you don't understand your why or your team doesn't understand the why, they're not going to buy in or they're not going to use it every day. And AI only gets better the more you use it, the more you train it. So you're going to see more companies come on. They're going to start using AI. The companies that use it correctly and use AI to head towards their company's mission will succeed. The other ones will just keep buying more and more AI tools, hoping that that's going to be the thing to take them to the next level. But all they're doing is confusing
Yeah.
their entire team on how to use it. And one thing when I go into teams now, I say, you almost have to sit down with a spreadsheet of all your tools, which one have AI capabilities, and monitor this all the time because every platform, every tool is adding more and more AI features. You want to make sure that they don't overlap. You don't want to be overpaying, but you also don't want to bombarding and wearing your team down by having to have so many tools when maybe they could have used just one.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see more people embracing more AI, which, I don't think I'm a big wizard to tell you that when everyone sees that, but it's all about stepping back, make sure you have the right tools to bring you in. But you are going to see people start more of that in-person videos, handwritten notes, because so many people are getting content and they're like, wait a minute, is this AI generated? Is this really Donna Peterson or is it a robot? Or is it
Right.
coming from a group in another country who's saying they're Donna Peterson, but it's not really Donna Peterson? And people are going to want to meet you in person. They're going to want to see your face. They're going to want just having a cup of tea or a coffee. I think you're going to see more of that. And you're going
Yeah.
to see those relationships deepen because I also think the workforce wants to see that. It's not all about money, making money. We want to make sure that we're making a difference, not in our only our companies, but in the world. So you'll see that too. Companies are going to be embracing more of a philanthropy side of their business. And, we're not just here as world innovators helping people with their marketing. We do this, this, and this.
Right. And it also comes down to like getting their time back as well, right? Like using and implementing and being open to these tools as they understand that they can help them do their job. They're like faster, probably better, and free up some time for what really matters to them, being it family or like whatever excites them outside of
Yes.
work, right?
Well, that makes them better employees too.
Right.
I think you're a big working out person like myself, and I'm a big advocate. Like you're stuck at work, go out for a long walk. It is amazing how fresh air and walking can really like take that idea you were stuck on and it pops right open. And you're like halfway through the walk, you're like, oh my gosh, that was so easy. Why didn't I figure this out before? But it just comes to you like that. So it's important for owners of companies to give their team time to decompress, be with their
Right.
family, and think about other things.
Yeah, yeah, couldn't agree more. And I want to know if you agree with me, but like as these AI tools are popping out, tool for this, tool for that, and we
Mm,
sign up for this, we sign up for that. Our tool stack is just growing, right? And
yes.
you mentioned like precisely that we should always take time to evaluate, what this tool is doing, what is it about? Is it overlapping with other tool, right?
Hmm.
But at the same time, I'm also seeing like the emergency of like integrated systems, right?
Hmm.
Instead of like having just one tool, we'll have like this agentic, AI tool that is going to talk just like basically a bunch of different tools that sit around the same table and
Hmm.
talk with each other, right? Are you seeing like a shift away from this like tool sprawl and toward more integrated systems as well?
Yes, and I'm a big advocate for that. I try to do that as much as possible. Even for us we're on the HubSpot platform and I use Zapier connections to try to bring everything in. So everything is in one place because getting back, and I know I sound like a broken record, but getting back to, building those relationships and deepening them, you have to have kind of all your information in one space to get that true picture,
Yeah.
to be able to talk to your specific audience on several different channels. You want that nice cohesive strategy so that it really offers value. So, yes, I am seeing that. The only thing I always stress is make sure everyone on your team knows how to use it and don't make it so sophisticated that you lose half of your workforce because you don't want to do that either. And I know sometimes people say, oh, well, if they can't keep up, they're not meant to be here, or we've changed. Just remember, people at all levels bring to the table a different perspective, and you need to hear different perspectives in order for your company to grow as a nice, complete unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as we move towards the end of this episode, I want to ask you a couple more questions. If a company, walks into your door today and asks you where to start with AI, what would you tell them?
Well, I always say start with Chat GPT, but buy the $20 a month.
Yeah.
Right there, start with $20 a month. And then I know, and I'm not plugging our YouTube channel, but World Innovators, tons of YouTube channels out there have how-to videos. If you're ever stuck on something you want to do with chat, or go on, look at some of the how-to videos, but then also ask chat. You can ask chat how to do things on chat, so, but
Yeah.
just open it up, whatever large language model you want to use, just start talking to it. And what you have to remember, and one of my analogies I love is a pumpkin bread recipe. You don't go into Chat GPT and say, "Can you give me a pumpkin bread recipe?" It gives you back a recipe, you take it and you go cook. No, the whole benefit of Chat GPT is to say, "Can I please have a pumpkin bread recipe? I don't want to use sugar and I don't want to use eggs. I'd like to use maple syrup and I'll use chia seeds. But I'd also like to add some cranberries and some walnuts." So you see what I'm doing? You talk with it back and forth so that this recipe of yours isn't just the cookie cutter run of the mill. You have now made it specific into what you love, the cranberries I like to add, or whether I want to add pumpkin seeds to it. You create your own unique pumpkin bread. And that's where you start with chat or the large language models, just talking back and forth with it. And you can use things like your next vacation, your next workout routine, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And like you said, you can give it a prompt to help you ask it what you want, right? Like, give me a prompt to be able to ask you how to make a pumpkin bread. Like,
Yes,
what would you like to know? And then he's like, yeah, tell me more about this and this and that. And then he gives you the prompt. So it's very user friendly. And I think I would agree with your advice for a company
yes,
that just wants to get it started. Start there, see how much it can do for you just for $20 a month. Then you start going into like, what's the real problem you want to solve right now? Let's dive into that and see how can AI can help you there. You can even ask
yes,
ChatGPT about it. What
yes.
are the AI tools that can help me with this specific problem, right?
Right. And you can put in your company URL and you can say, based on the services our company has to offer, what do you think should be our next direction? What should be the next thing we do? And here's just a
Yeah.
fun little thing that I set up within Chat GPT. When you have the paid, you can set up projects, throw it to the left hand side. And I created a project, which is my board of directors project. And in there, I put Tony Robbins, Warren Buffett, Gary Vee, Max Lucado, a whole bunch of people that I read, business people that are in there, so that if I've got a question about World Innovators, should we go in this direction? What should I be doing with AI tools? Because we get a lot of them too. I can go in and ask their opinion.
Amazing. I love that. I think I'm going to copy that for myself.
Do, because it's a lot of fun and sometimes it's the exact support you need.
Yeah. But like Donna, let's bring it back to your world for a moment.
Yes.
What are you most excited to build or expand at World Innovators in the next year?
I want to be out speaking more at events because I think people need to be educated on how to leverage AI in a correct way. And a lot of these industrial brands, manufacturing's had a lot going on this year, and there's no way all of them are thinking AI through clearly. So I like to get out there. I want to speak more at events and break it down plain and simple for people so that they don't see this AI as so overwhelming. I want every company to have the opportunity to embrace it and find the great assistant I found.
Amazing. And I'm sure you're familiar with this last question, but I cannot not ask it. Donna, you have accomplished so much in World Innovators, legacy, relevance, and now leadership in AI education. If you could wave a magic wand and remove one obstacle that is holding your business back today, what would
Ooh.
it be?
Oh, that is a hard question. And I'm going to revert it a little bit. I'm going to tell you what is one lesson I wish I had learned earlier, public speaking. Up until 5 years ago, I was petrified of public speaking. I highly recommend to anyone who is a professional to work on your communication skills. It is so important to be a good leader, but save yourself all that anxiety of doing all those presentations and sweating through them. Work on that. I joined Toastmasters 5 years ago. Best thing I ever did. And now look, I'm out speaking at conferences all over the world. So I'm going to change it around. No blocks right now. 5 years ago, I wish I had learned that lesson.
That is incredible. Thank you for sharing such grounded, practical insights. Before we end, where can people find you online and learn more about your AI trainings and the B2B Marketing Excellence and AI podcast?
Well, you can definitely go onto our YouTube channel, the World Innovators YouTube channel. In there, you'll see all our podcast episodes. The B2B Marketing Excellence in AI podcast is on all your podcast platforms, so it'll be out there. And you can find Donna Peterson on LinkedIn. And of course, you can always go to the World Innovators website, worldinnovators.com.
Amazing. That brings us to the end of this episode. This podcast is sponsored by Inevitable Flow. We help architecture, engineering, and construction firms generate a consistent flow of qualified project leads using AI-powered outbound systems, so they can grow revenue without hiring a sales team or relying on unpredictable referrals. If you want to book a free consultation to find out more, click the link in the description of the show. I'll see you next time.